You know the feeling. You spend an hour crafting the perfect message, choosing every word carefully, softening every edge. You hit send. And then you wait, watching for the reply that will finally confirm you said it right this time, that you handled it well enough, that they're okay with you now. And when the reply comes back cold, or doesn't come at all, something in your chest drops. Not because you needed them specifically, but because you needed to know you hadn't failed. That you were still, somehow, acceptable. That feeling has a name no one really talks about. It's not rejection exactly. It's the exhaustion of living inside someone else's verdict about who you are. Permanently auditioning. Never quite cast. And here's the thing most of us never say out loud. We've organized entire lives around avoiding that feeling. The jobs we took, the opinions we kept quiet, the version of ourselves we perform at dinner tables and in comment sections and on first dates. All of it, in service of one silent goal. Don't give them a reason to dislike you. It never works. And somewhere, underneath everything, you already know that. In their book The Courage to be Disliked, Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga make a point that reframed something I thought I understood about freedom. They argue, through the lens of Adlerian psychology, that most of our suffering isn't caused by our past or our circumstances. It's caused by the goals we've unconsciously chosen, and for a lot of us, that hidden goal is approval, at any cost. Here's where things get interesting. The pursuit of approval feels rational. It feels social. It feels like just being a decent, considerate person. But there's a shadow underneath it that most people never examine. When your primary goal in any relationship, any room, any conversation, is to not be disliked, you're not actually connecting with people. You're managing them, quietly, constantly. Think about what that actually looks like in practice. You agree with opinions you don't hold. You laugh at things that aren't funny to you. You shrink yourself in rooms where you sense your full presence might make someone uncomfortable. And you call this being easygoing, being kind, being low maintenance. But what you're really doing is making yourself disappear, one small compromise at a time. The surprising part is that this strategy doesn't even achieve what it promises. Because people can sense the performance, not always consciously, but they feel it. The version of you that's been edited for their comfort is somehow less compelling than the version that simply showed up as itself. You bend yourself into something inoffensive and end up with connections built on a character that isn't entirely you. So every time you tried harder to be liked, you moved further from actually being known. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine a person in your life, someone you genuinely admire, someone whose presence feels real, whose opinions feel honest, who you trust because you sense they're not performing for you. Now ask yourself honestly, do they agree with everyone? Do they try to be palatable to every room they walk into? Almost certainly not. And that's exactly why you trust them. Their willingness to be sometimes wrong, sometimes disliked, sometimes out of step. That's the thing that makes them feel real to you. We admire in others the very thing we're terrified to practice ourselves. This is exactly what Kishimi and Koga were pointing toward when they introduced the concept of separation of tasks. The idea is almost uncomfortable in its clarity. Your task is to live according to your values, to speak honestly, to show up as you actually are. What other people think of that, how they receive it, how they judge it, whether they approve, that is entirely their task, not yours. You are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your existence. Read that again. Let it land. Most of us were never taught this. We were raised in systems, families, schools, workplaces, where other people's emotional responses to our behavior were constantly handed back to us as our responsibility. Someone's upset, you must have done something wrong. Someone's distant, you need to fix it. Someone disapproves, time to adjust. The message was clear, even when it was never spoken directly. The way people feel about you is yours to control. But it never was, it never will be. And the attempt to control it is costing you something enormous, something that doesn't have a clean name, but feels like the slow erosion of knowing who you are. Not the grief of a single lost friendship, the grief of looking back across years of careful self-editing and realizing the version of yourself you protected everyone from might have been the most interesting one. Here's the uncomfortable reframe. The people-pleasing, the over-explaining, the constant internal checking of whether everyone in the room is okay with you. We tend to think of these as signs of sensitivity, of emotional intelligence, of caring deeply about others. And sometimes they are, but sometimes, and this is the part that stings, it's not about them at all. It's about the unbearable anxiety of being seen clearly and found lacking. The other person's comfort becomes a convenient way to frame what is actually your own fear. You've been calling it consideration. Some of it was armor. So what changes when you actually accept the thesis? When you stop treating it like an idea and start treating it as true, that some people will dislike you, no matter what you do, no matter how carefully you curate yourself, no matter how many edges you sand off. Something very quiet shifts. The constant low-level noise of social monitoring starts to fade. You stop doing the mental math before you speak, calculating likely responses, pre-editing for palatability. And in that space, something else becomes possible. You start to notice what you actually think, what you actually want, what you would do and say and build if the audience weren't the point. This is what freedom actually feels like. Not the dramatic version, not burning everything down, just the quiet, almost startling experience of making a choice based on what you value instead of what you fear. Kishimi and Koga describe this as living in the present tense, not performing for some future approval, not rewriting the past to make it more acceptable, just inhabiting your actual life as it is, with the people who are actually there. That sounds simple. It is not simple, because the moment you stop seeking approval universally, some people will in fact withdraw it. Some people will be confused by you, some will be frustrated, and the part of you that was trained from childhood to read those signals as danger will fire every alarm it has. The courage they're talking about in that title isn't the courage of grand gestures. It's quieter and, in many ways, harder. It's the courage to sit with someone's disappointment in you and not immediately try to fix it. It's the courage to end a conversation without knowing if you're still liked. It's the courage to let your honest self be the version people respond to, knowing some of them won't respond well, and deciding that's okay. And still, you stay. Because the alternative, the version of your life where you succeed completely at being inoffensive, where you've made yourself small enough that no one ever has reason to push back, that life has a cost too. It's just a quieter cost, paid daily, in increments so small you forget you're paying. So here's the question I want to leave you with. The one I keep coming back to, long after I close the book. If you already knew, truly knew, not just intellectually, but in your body, that some people were going to dislike you regardless, and that there was nothing you could do or say or become to change that, what would you do differently tomorrow? If that answer feels uncomfortable, or exciting, or both at once, sit with it. The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga is absolutely worth your time, not because it tells you what to do, but because it hands you a mirror and trusts you to look. If this video resonated, subscribe to 1% Reader. We do this every week. One book, one idea, explored all the way through.